Increasing commercial prices of meat and meat products. The Polish People's Republic (PRL) government tried to control prices. From the 1950s, the retail prices of most commodities were determined by the authorities. In most cases, they had nothing to do with production costs or market demands. When the economy was on the edge of collapse in the 1970s, special so-called commercial shops selling meat were introduced. They offered products unavailable elsewhere, and the prices were usually twice as high as the official authorised prices. These new commercial rates were also supposed to apply to canteens and plant shops from the 1st of July 1980, leading to a price rise of 30%. This led directly to protests and strikes in the summer of 1980. But high prices were not the only problem. Queues to shops were a common sight in the PRL. People would queue for hours to get food, industrial and household products, not knowing that if they would even be available when they reached the front of the queue. Unjustified breaks at work. July 1980 abounded in unjustified breaks at work. These were in fact strikes, but the People's Government tried not to use this term. In plants, mass meetings were being held on some shifts during breakfast breaks, demanding the withdrawal of the price rises, demanding wage increases and improving work conditions. One or a few day-long strikes were being organised in some plants. The managements of the protesting enterprises were quickly reaching agreements with the protesters, promising them wages higher by even 2,000 Polish złotych, which was then a significant amount, and also meeting their other demands. Workers soon realised that such activities provided an effective tool to achieve their goals, and the protests quickly spread. July brought downtimes in 177 plants in total, with 81,000 participants. The greatest number of plants protesting were in the Lublin region. Protests still occurred in some plants in early August. However, their momentum slowed down enough for the first secretary of the Polish United Workers' Party, Edward Gierek, to be able to go to the Crimea on holidays. Szczecin. Strike at the Gdansk shipyard. The Lenin-Gdansk shipyard went on strike on the 14th of August. Unlike previous protests, this strike had been planned in advance, and the dismissal of Anna Walentynovich served as a pretext to start acting. Members of the free trade unions of the coast were aware that the strike wave would reach Gdansk. Therefore, Bogdan Borusowicz, an activist of the unions, had planned how to initiate and carry out the strike. By noon on the 14th of August, the entire plant had stopped working. The strike committee was chosen quickly. It was headed by Lech Wałęsa, a former shipyard worker who had been fired in 1976. Over the following days, strikes started in other Tri-City plants. The gates of the plants were closed. Strike guards were appointed to verify all people entering the enterprises, and alcohol was prohibited. On the 16th of August, representatives of the striking enterprises established the Inter-Enterprise Strike Committee in Gdansk, with its HQ in the Gdansk shipyard, and prepared a list of 21 demands. The demand to establish independent trade unions took top spot, in sympathy with the coast. In the wake of the strikes, called breaks at work by the authorities, proclaimed in the Lublin region, Gdansk and Gdynia, the Adolf Warski shipyard in Szczecin stopped work on the 18th of August 1980 during the breakfast break at around 10:40 a.m. Then the Pratnica shipyard went on strike. In total, 20 plants from Szczecin stopped working. The Inter-Enterprise Strike Committee, the MKS, was established, headed by Marian Jurczyk. Following the experiences from Gdansk, the MKS from Szczecin displayed boards with their demands. Difficult talks with the authorities. On the 21st of August 1980 at 10 a.m, negotiations between the Inter-Enterprise Strike Committee and the Government Committee, headed by Deputy Prime Minister Kazimierz Barczykowski, started in the main common room of the Szczecin shipyard. Barczykovsky rejected the political demands and tried to antagonize the MKS from Szczecin and the one from Gdansk. He presented the latter as quarrelsome. The talks were suspended. 105 representatives of various departments of the shipyard and 106 representatives of 53 enterprise strike committees participated in the meeting. The workers presented 36 demands. Further plants joined the MKS from Gdansk. Agreements between Pomeranian inter-enterprise strike committees. On the evening of the 23rd of August 1980, Saturday, a delegation from the Szczecin MKS visited the Gdansk shipyard. The delegates explained the situation in Szczecin as well as the works on the content of the most important strike demand, which referred to the establishment of independent trade unions. It was assumed that the strike in Szczecin would not end if the demands concerning free trade unions and the guaranteeing of the safety of the strikers were not met. The Szczecin and Gdansk inter-enterprise strike committees exchanged delegates. Moreover, direct telephone contact between the two strike committees was established. The delegation went to Gdansk once again on the 25th of August. As a result of these contacts, the expectations of the strikers concerning one of the fundamental demands were eventually specified: fight for an independent union. A basic demand concerned the establishment of independent trade unions. On the 24th of August 1980, striking workers established a social fund for the free trade unions. Nearly 1.5 million Polish zlotys was collected for its operations. The authorities continued to refuse the establishment of independent trade unions. Therefore, talks were suspended on August the 27th, 1980. Finally, the Government Committee and the MKS created a group of experts to work on the elaboration of the interpretation of the legal basis for the establishment of independent trade unions. Flow of strike information. Striking workers wanted to have access to information. They were striving for free communication with the rest of society. On the 21st of August 1980, announcement of the Enterprise Strike Committee was printed at the premises of FMS Polmo. It was later turned into a magazine entitled Information. On the 24th of August 1980, the first issue of the Szczecin MKS magazine entitled Unity was published. Its title referred to the newspaper published by the Gdansk MKS Solidarity. Leszek Dlouchy, an engineer from the Gryfia shipyard, was the editor of Unity. Inter-enterprise support. Following a famous poem of the time by an anonymous author, from the mountains to Gdansk, not Gdansk and not Radom, not Lublin, Warsaw, but the entire Poland is sick of lawlessness. The striking Szczecin shipyard was supported by many plants from various industries and cities other than Szczecin. On the 28th of August 1980, a delegation from the Wrocław MKS stayed in Szczecin, leading to the creation of the Interwoiwódzkie Strike Committee Szczecin-Wrocław-Bydgoszcz. Work was interrupted also in the cities of Świnoujście, Police, Koszalin, Białogard, Szczecinek, Elbląg, Gorzów Wielkopolski. Initially, 20 plants joined the Szczecin MKS. Later, this number grew to 60. 150 plants were striking in Szczecin Woiwództwo, employing over 150,000 people. Crews of over 210 enterprises were supporting the strikers. Stagnation. When maritime workers, railwaymen and drivers joined the strikes, stagnation ensued in the public space. Everything stopped. Public transport effectively ceased to operate. On the 25th of August 1980, employees of the Polish ocean lines in Szczecin, as well as the crews of ships mooring in the Szczecin port, went on strike. The government press expressed concern regarding this situation. After all, it affected the socialist economy, everyday life during the strike. People have to eat, otherwise they'll die. Therefore, the authorities may have had the idea to starve the strikers out. Luckily, it didn't happen, and the striking workers had the necessary food delivered. Warm meals were prepared in the shipyard's rooms. People were helping each other and did their best to be friendly. That's how solidarity was born. The society was uniting. Resting strikers. Life during the strike also included the usual daily rituals. The state of health of the strikers was also being checked. People were trying to fight tension in different ways. They were trying to rest wherever they could, to take a nap, sleep, find some peace. They were doing all to reduce the stress resulting from the talks with the authorities and to gain some strength to fight for the benefit of Poland. Opposing the authorities. The communist authorities were starting or initiating activities aimed at slowing down the development of the strikes. They did all they could to discourage the workers from striking. When it was found that it wasn't helping, the authorities aimed at discrediting the strikers. To that end, they used propaganda. The official media knew how to do it. Most frequently, they were trying to ignore the matter. However, the determination of the protesters was huge, and at the end of the day, all of the propaganda measures failed. Openness of the public life. The society wanted to hear uncensored news about the latest events. However, the official mass media never enjoyed full social confidence. The strikers' aim was to make the public life open during the strikes. Radio Free Europe played a huge part in overcoming the blockade of information. However, its broadcasts were being blocked and jammed by the Polish authorities from the very beginning. Inhabitants of Szczecin could listen to the August talks between the MKS and the government committee through loudspeakers. Participants and listeners were frequently recording them using portable tape recorders. It was a common scene during the August strikes. Spiritual support provided by Roman Catholic priests. Poland is a country inhabited mostly by Catholics, and workers were frequently religious. Catholic priests were supporting the strikers and providing them with spiritual aid. On Sunday, August 24, 1980 at 9:30 a.m., a priest, Jerzy Sosna, the parson of the local St. Stanisław Kostka parish, said the first Mass at the Szczecin shipyard. Many worshippers gathered in the square in front of the shipyard's gate, as well as behind it, to participate in the Mass. A portrait of the Holy Father John Paul II was one of the religious elements of the decorations. It was hung on the shipyard's gate. No families. Prolonged negotiations with the authorities led to separation from families. The strike entailed no husband or father at home for a long time. Hence, wives, children and mothers were coming to the workers. Naturally, the plant's gate became the meeting place. Foreign media reports frequently showed this place. Triumph of negotiations. On Saturday, the 30th of August 1980, at 8 a.m., as a result of overnight negotiations, a social agreement was signed in the common room of the Adolf Warski shipyard in Szczecin. Thus ended the nearly 2-week-long strike. The signed document was entitled Protocol of Arrangements Concerning the Proposals and Demands of the Inter-Enterprise Strike Committee with the Government Committee in Szczecin. The agreement was signed by, on behalf of the government, Kazimierz Barczykowski, Andrzej Zrabinski, and Janusz Brych, and on behalf of the MKS, Marian Jurczyk, Kazimierz Fischbian, and Marian Juszczuk. The MKS became the Inter-Enterprise Workers' Committee, which started to organise the new unions. The Szczecin Agreement included a provision concerning the establishment of free trade unions. However, the new unions would acknowledge their socialist character and were obliged to join the Central Council of Trade Unions.